My name is Sergey Gribanov. I'm working for DNV here in Hamburg, and I'm happy to kick off the last panel discussion for today. In my panel, we will talk about how to navigate through industry transformation. And I would like you to put the owner's perspective on that. We put together an excellent panel with quite a broad view and broad experience from various geography and also various segments. Let me introduce Helge Bartels, Chief Operating Officer from Bernhard Schulte. It's a traditional ship owner based in Hamburg, having about over 75 ships in ownership, but also one of the world's largest third-party ship manager. John Su, representing Erasmus Ship Management Group, being CEO and president of the group with a fleet of, I learned yesterday that it's actually more than 30 ships. What you are
it's around 40, 50, around. Thanks.
Yes, so internet knows a lot, but not always up to the latest development. And it's a diverse fleet of bulk carriers, feeder container vessels, and LPG, where you are growing at the moment the most.
Yeah, precisely. Thank
you. We have with us Jens Arndt, managing partner of Vogemann Reederei. The company, significantly expanding over the last years, placed a large order book of bulk carriers, having 20 ships in the water and about 20 ships on order. And I can say that it's probably the youngest bulk carrier fleet in the world, what Vogemann Reederei is representing. And we have with us Bart Darr, EVP, Executive Vice President, Maritime Policy and Government Affairs at MSC Group, based in Switzerland. If I can say so, because I think you're more based in the airplane, actually. Than
the airlines think that, yeah.
But we take a ground place as your official office location. And I think I don't need to talk more about MSC Group. Well, it's a fact that shipping is going through a next significant transformation. And the last same or similar scale of transformation of shipping, I would call a change from coal to a liquid fuel or from a steam engine to a diesel engine. Now drivers of transformation are different. Mainly drivers are coming from regulators, from our customers like cargo owners, for example, pushing for decarbonization. However, decarbonization is not the only factor transforming the industry. There are more factors which are playing a significant role. And now I would like to kick off the discussion with a question to you. What do you see as the most significant factors transforming the industry now, shaping the industry, and how you would anticipate it will affect the industry in decades to come?
I have about an hour for that, right? Yeah, I appreciate the question, and I think the biggest challenge is predicting, adapting to, being ready for the unknowns. The things that we can see coming are much easier to plan for, and that includes decarbonization, which is by far the biggest practical and regulatory and policy challenge we've ever faced in this industry, maybe the biggest one we will ever face. And the way I analogize it is if you look back at IMO 2020, and technically speaking, on 1 January 2020, the entire world was supposed to change over to a different fuel we weren't ready to use in the past for 60,000 ships. Now, give or take, that's about what happened. And that is going to be a small footnote when this chapter is written in the end about decarbonization. Because the big difference was there was a technical solution available if you could afford to buy distillate fuel, you could buy distillate fuel and you could comply. And technically the engine manufacturers were up to that. And if not, you had another technical solution in exhaust gas cleaning systems. And then it turns out the energy providers at the end of the day brought to market large scale blended VLSFO fuel. That is very, very small in the sense of accomplishment compared to what we are going to do together as an industry as we continue on this 26-year journey from here to be at net zero for 2050. The solutions are not obvious. The solutions are all expensive. The solutions all have practical implications we've got to manage. And those of us that are on the ship owner or operator side of this are facing a customer base that generally is like, yeah, go decarbonize, we insist on it, but they're not really ready to face up to the reality of what that's going to cost. So I use that as an example of one of the things, but I heard someone mention the phrase black swan earlier, and I don't think of all bad events as black swans. The ones you can't see coming, I like to think of those as black swans, but we've had plenty of those too, and there may be more looming on the horizon. I was at a conference 2 weeks ago speaking on a panel, and somebody said, it kind of feels like we've got a whole flock of black swans lately, and I think that's about accurate, that the frequency and the intensity of these unpredictable events is increasing all the time. I think that's reality, the Red Sea being another example. But what is the strength of this industry is as we serve the world's trade needs, because we are the conduit for world trade, we can and have proven we will adapt. And if we can keep doing that, and we keep looking at ourselves as an industry of problem solvers, not ones that run away from a challenge, we'll get there. And I got bad news. If you don't like the challenge, if you don't like to fix problems, you're probably not in the right line of work, because this is kind of what we do every day, and I think we will continue to do it and be very successful at it into the future.
Thanks. That was very good definition. Jens, would you agree to that, or you would see some other trends?
We are slightly smaller company than MSC.
Most of
it. Short question, rather long answer, but I will try to keep it as short as possible. If we look back in 2009, we had also about 20 vessels under management. By 2016, we had, of course, in a very difficult market environment, we had lost more than 50% of our vessels due to being sold. So we had to rethink and reverse our strategy. And previously, we were very much focusing on niche segments. It's one way for a small shipping company to survive. So we were actually focusing within the bike segment on 24 small handy-size bike carriers. But unfortunately, even in a capital-intensive industry, even if you're in a niche segment, it still requires a lot of money, and we are dependent on external investors, and not only all investors prefer the most fungible assets. And so we decided to reverse our strategy and to go for vessels as close as possible to the industry standard. In our segment in bike, the industry standard is usually the respective Baltic Exchange index type vessel. For our core segment, it's the 38K Japanese-built Imabari. So the idea was to have these vessels, but even better than the industry standard. How did we achieve this without a big research and development team? Of course, we have no crystal ball, but even today, we really have no clue which alternative fuel we should use, as we are in tramp shipping. We are not in liner services. So, but we took for granted, and which I still believe, that in the end, on the long run, fuel prices will go only in one direction, which is up. So we had to focus on very, very fuel-efficient vessels. We have on further unique advantage, we are one of the largest dry bulk chartering brokers in the world. And of course, what we say in Germany, we have den Finger Puls der Zeit, so we are in daily contact with all the major players in our segment. So we can talk to them and we get the feedback what they require if they want to have excellent vessels. Furthermore, if you don't have the know-how yourself, you have to get it from third parties. So we are in very, very close dialogue, have many meetings with the external know-how providers, designers, of course, classification societies, equipment manufacturers, and so on. And last but not least, we had many, many visits to shipyards, prospective shipbuilders. In the end, we just took the best possible design which was available on the market, which was, funnily enough, a Chinese design, not a Japanese, as many would assume. And we made some further decisions. We went always for the latest and most fuel-efficient main engine. We are making them ready for alternative fuels as far as possible. We prepare them for shore power. We never select inferior makers. And for instance, we went for NOx Tier 3 vessels when many other owners were still happily signing Tier 2 contracts. And most importantly, I think we have our own dedicated, highly skilled, qualified site supervision team at every shipyard where we are building. And Sergey is getting nervous because it takes too long. So, but to cut the long story short, the strategy paid out. And in January 2019, we took delivery of our first 40K Green Dolphin Handysize bulker, Vogel Sophie, and she was the first Handysize bulker worldwide ever to comply with the highest IMO carbon emission standard, EEDI Phase 3, since January 2019. Another 750 Handysize bulkers, new buildings, have been delivered, but still today, less than 50 comply with EEDI Phase 3, and also less than 50 comply with the highest greenhouse gas emission standard A+. And more than 1/3 of these vessels have been ordered and built for us, and of course we are very happy with this. And needless to say, with all uncertainty, our vessels are fetching high premiums compared to the industry standard.
So, thank you, Jens. Yeah, you did quite a comprehensive answer to the question. Also, you touched upon how you evaluated to make your fleet fit for the future, having such a big order of the ships, because they need to be not only for 5 years, but for a lifetime fit and competitive on the market. Thanks for that. And now I want to ask you, John, being an interpreter in your heart, I believe, what does transformation means for you?
Technology-wise, or?
I mean the industry, maritime transformation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Very, very good afternoon to all. So very, very happy to be back in Hamburg after almost more than 5 years away. My last visit was before COVID pandemic in Hamburg. So I was really very, very happy to see many old friends again after such a long time. And thank you very much for the introduction also, Sergey. I'm sorry that up to now we don't have any DNV class vessels. That's why we seem to look so far up to now. So I mean, looks like a bit material for DNV class friends. But I mean, on the other hand, we are actually humbly being the smallest owner in a panel. I mean, not comparable with MSC or any other panelist. But on the other hand, proudly, as the youngest company, we have only 15 years history. We set up from scratch. And traditionally, initially, we also focus on large bulkers. And then in the last few years, we tried successfully to going through all the difficult market cycles, and then also diversified into different sectors, into feeder container vessels, and then multi-purpose vessels, and also small LPG coaster-sized vessels. So actually, in terms of technology transformation, all this part, I think As I mentioned also last month at the Capital Link Tokyo Forum, there are too many mixed signals and then too many choices also. So we have seen many owners, large owners, have ordered dual fuel of different choices on order book. Well, in our own case, we try to, let's say, avoid being a victim rather than to be a beneficial party from any unexpected events or situation of the market. So, because we need to make sure that we are there to deliver and we are there to perform, because our main marketplace is in Japan. We still have more than 10 new building orders in various Japanese yards. And then, of course, our financing also mainly out of Japan as well. Instead of any new building order in China up to now. So, in the term of this technology, I would say that I was joking last month at Tokyo Forum that unless there are tri-fuel or multiple fuel solutions, maybe we try to step on. Otherwise, we will rather take a wait-and-see situation than until big companies really make a much more clear picture and direction for us, and then we will probably follow later on. So in that sense, that's also part of the reason why we choose to do relatively smaller size of vessel, because these smaller segments we feel at least is probably the last segment to be impacted by the technology regulation respect, something like that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, John. That means you take more conservative approach and you observe what big players are doing, then go for a proven technology rather than...
Yeah, it's like, take for example, the small pressurized LPG carriers that we are owning and ordering at the moment. Is like their daily consumption is only 7-8 tons. So what we can talk about for dual fuel or more efficiency, if we do slow steaming, it can be 5-6 tons only. So, but they are very much positioned around the world, different trade, very regional feedering services as well. So that's why, the pressure or motive behind for us is on the technology side is relatively small.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Helge, I see you brought with you toolbox of various things, and I'm just excited how you're going to use them. Which one is could be looking like a crystal ball. I'm not sure whether it is, but it's a ship inside.
Can we buy those?
I don't even want to guess how you're going to use those tools, but I'm just excited to see how that works. Bernhard Schulte has been for a long time a leader in innovation. As we look into the future, how you are ensuring that your fleet is fit for the challenges ahead? And we would say both in terms of technology and sustainability.
Okay, the good news is, and that's the reason why I brought that, we have a crystal ball. Of course, it's box-shaped, otherwise you can't store it. We are absolutely capable of looking into the future, and then we can open it. So, what do we learn from that saying? Better be prepared, right? So the question doesn't come out of the blue. We are prepared, and as Bud already stated, of course we try to be problem solvers, and we try to prepare for all that's up there coming, which we actually don't predict. So putting that to a more realistic, shipping is about connecting. So how do we ensure that we can manage challenges? Well, we are connecting each other. We are communicating, we are cooperating, we are working together. We are getting all kinds of expertise, experience. We try to do that across our own group, but also across all the different maritime sectors that we have, businesses that we know, and that we can ideally combine and connect. And this is what enables us to basically be prepared for whatever is there to come. It is conferences like these, so thanks for the invitation and the chance. But it's also about learning more, knowing what's going on, preparing for the better and the best, and to continuously improve for that. So in principle, and I don't think that's a matter of the size of the company or the difference in strategy, it is about how and what we are doing. And if we are connecting, working together in terms of cooperation, and if we communicate, for sure we will be managing the challenges and the risks ahead. And I think that's, to a good extent, the strategy that we are following, besides trying to be innovative as we have methanol, offshore vessels under construction, as we're having one of the first CO2 carrier tankers, which has all kinds of nice energy-saving technologies, from flattener rotors to air bubble systems. So we are participating in that. But I'm very sure, just as John just said, you don't always have to be the guinea pigging first mover, which could likely cause a hit. And that, I think, has to do with the sizes of the companies. And in that respect, everybody has to take its role. And this is what we're also living up to. So I think that is what we are and how we are preparing for the future. We're connecting, cooperating, communicating, and trying to get the best out of us all.
Thank you, Helge. I think you could give an advice to the audience, also to our panel members, what they need to have in order to be well prepared for the future. It's a relatively simple toolbox, how I could see it. Well, there was a very interesting opinions I heard. And as we heard many times today, sustainability and environmental regulations are playing more and more significant role in our business environment and becoming even more complex. But you've been dealing with regulation and policies for many, many years, and I think you gain a lot of experience how to deal with it in an efficient manner. Could you give an advice maybe to our listeners here, how to make sure that company stays in compliance with the regulation and at the same time remain competitive on the market?
Yeah, I'll give a little bit, but I could benefit from Helge's crystal ball that has a block coefficient of 1, I think, about. It's not easy because it's probably not enough, either from a cultural perspective or a long-term success perspective, to just be in a compliance mode and do just what the regulations require. But the further you go in front of that, the more risk you take. And I think with decarbonization, it's a good example where we're kind of changing the tires on the truck as it's rolling down the road, and the regulations are being written at the same time we're trying to comply with them. But what we've done to try to manage that is, first of all, deal in what we know now and what we have available now. And that's why you see we have a very substantial order book as well as for dual fuel methane ships or LNG ships. But we've also got about 24 on the water right now, I think, and all 24 are running on LNG, plus in our cruise fleet, because we are also the third biggest cruise line in the world, two more operating LNG-fueled cruise ships with 7 more, I think, in the pipeline at the moment. We have that now, and it's about an 8 to 23% well-to-wake improvement over the life cycle. Not going to get you to decarbonization, but it's a pretty good start. And why leave that on the table if we can do it now? And then we can progress off of fossil LNG onto bio and synthetic. So we're, in our forward-looking planning, we're working every single day to try and identify what those sources for those fuels are going to be, so we can start building out those relationships it takes to actually put those advanced fuels in the tanks that really can get us to a net zero future rather than fossil LNG, which helps us now. But keep in mind, if you hear a number like 100, and we do have an existing order book for dual fuel LNG ships of over 100 ships, you're diluting that into a fleet of 850 container ships and well over 1,000 ships overall. So that doesn't mean we're not looking at the other options. And as we look at these ships we're taking delivery of and those that we intend to order in the future, we're thinking about how much can we afford on the front end on the CapEx to make those ships as adaptable as possible as the picture changes over time. Because you might find what looks like the obvious perfect solution in 2028 for a particular design and particular deployment, but that might not be the right answer in 2034. And it might be way off the mark in 2042, but those ships are probably going to be in service. Hopefully they will be over that period of time. So it's not just trying to be right in the abstract or the definite, but also have the flexibility to be able to be right at different phases of this journey that we're all on, whether it's our fleet or overall. And that's typically the way we approach technology in general, and including on the commercial side with electronic bills of lading and other tools like that, where we're trying to make it adaptable to the customer needs over time, because we can't possibly have all the answers today, almost no matter what technology you're talking about. And if you try and prescribe a single answer on a technology-based solution on an expensive multi-decade asset, well, you're not going to be right all the time with that asset. It's going to change over time, whether it's an electronic tool, whether it's a physical asset of a ship like we're adding to our fleet.
Thank you, but that's, I think, great advice. And I think those of you in the room who are not recording the advice, made a voice recording that you could use it for your companies. Yeah, let's talk about competitiveness. I think it's a vital element for every enterprise, for every company doing the business. And I read, I hope it's correct, John, on the internet, that Erasmus Shipinvest is committed to growth.
Absolutely.
Where do you see an opportunity to grow during the transformation of the industry?
Well, that's the same question as how to find a crystal ball, I think.
It's not far.
Thank you, Sergey, for the question. I think, well, it's a very interesting timing. I think we are absolutely in a crossroad of to left, to right, to which direction we go. And then, of course, the choice is not so many. On the new buildings front, we see that almost all the yards in the Far East, I mean, basically Japan, China, they are almost full up to 2028 at least, which means that almost no chance to do any building. Of course, if any owner is brave enough to pay $80 million for Capesize delivered 2028, I mean, still there are slots. Well, instead of doing that, I mean, putting decarbonization concept aside, just as pure as old school theory to think about any new investment things, new development part, we would rather look at existing vessels. And then, honestly, that's how we done recently, buying from our fellow German owners feeder container vessels, then to fix relatively good enough supportive TC employment. And then at least we feel that this is something that we can relatively manage the risk and return to balance, to arbitrage this in between. And I think this is something that definitely we will try to do something that we feel relatively controllable on that part. So rather than doing really something that new technology driven or this kind of venture capital driven investment, I would say. So it's rather old school, old fashioned. So I think it all depends on the asset value and also the earnings. Obviously, on a dry bulk at the moment, we don't see that kind of connection on asset value and TC earning support. That's why we are looking at relatively niche market segments. So like feeder container vessels, so like LPG gas vessels. So to make sure that the investment